Hi, this is Akshita. Today we have Mr. Anand from StayQrious NeoSchool to talk about his school, the journey, and everything. Let's welcome him. Hello, Anand. How are
Hi.
you?
I'm doing good, Akshita. Thanks so much for doing this. Yeah. I'm not doing this recently. I think when I was in college itself, I used to talk about this a little bit. I was really
Mhm.
interested in cognitive science, but I was a computer science grad from NIT Trichy. So I studied in Chennai and I had some good teachers and I had some great teachers and I had some pretty bad teachers also. So I didn't have time to observe the differences between these three when I was in school.
Okay.
But when I went to college, I had enough time because many of the teachers were not the best. And you're like being forced to attend and things like that. And I did computer science, like I said, from NIT Trichy. And that was when I was also like having a lot of interest in cognitive science. And I could see that a lot of the ways in which we practice education were not in line with the way the brain actually learns. And that felt very surprising to me because imagine you're observing, say, the medical field and you notice that, hey, the way we practice medicine is not in line with the way biology works. That would be very surprising and very interesting for you. It was for me. But then I thought, I'm missing something. That's the more likely outcome, right? But then over time, as I was learning, I just learned that I am not missing something. It's the field that's missing it. So I first started off just to figure this out by just teaching. So I started teaching physics of 11th and 12th students for about a couple of years.
Mhm.
Then I made videos implementing some of these principles. Those 2 years of classes were like really good. Tech students loved me, and then they were also learning a lot. But I also learned that even I was using methods that were somewhat traditional. Like I would lecture, but do it really well, and then that um, doesn't work as well. So even if you're a great teacher or so-called like very good communicator, and if you know the subject really well, and able to make them really excited about the topic, even then they would be like you'd be better than many teachers, but there would still be big gaps. So my story started where I realized that the real problem is the way we engineer education. We can't just solve it by having like great teachers come in. We believe that, but I didn't think so. So then, as a first step, I made videos. That was in 2014, 14, and these videos in physics for 11th and 12th, 9th and 10th, eventually lower, got really popular. They have maybe been watched like millions of times, maybe more than that. They've been translated to many languages. Byju's picked that up, and I was essentially for some time the face of that company for a while, where because all the videos, I mean, the main science content was mostly mine, the physics content especially. Then I joined Khan Academy because I realized that it's nice to be orange juice on the side where children learn from you after school, and then you try to undo the problem there after school. But I was like, hey, maybe we should try and change what happens in the school. So I've been, if you notice, it's not like this one shot thing. I've been slowly getting more and more. I taught first, then I thought, okay, let's solve it at a larger scale. But after school, then through Khan Academy, I joined them as their head of content for India in 2016 because they had that same vision at that time. Sal Khan had also concluded, let's not stay after school, let's work with schools
Okay.
and try to help them implement mastery based learning, things like that, which is basically children getting enough feedback and time to learn rather than being pushed aside, pushed to go forward just because of the timetable. Make it more active. Um, we were training teachers to do that. We were building curriculum and giving them free resources to do that. I did that for about 2.5 years. At least my conclusion was that that's great to do. But from my personal liking, I felt like it's better to not wait for a system to change. So my big learning at that point was that I think old systems generally don't change. They just grow more irrelevant and die. New systems replace them has been the story of the world's change most of the times. So it's like, hey, maybe that's what I should go bet on. So that was 2019 when I decided to, spoke to a lot of people at Khan Academy how we could change the role of the teacher to a learning coach, how we could like convert the whole way the school works into this really active project based way and all that. And then they said that, hey, this sounds like a new company that you should start and go build. And so that was 2019 20. That's kind of been the long how I got into it slowly. Yeah.
So, do you feel that there was no one that turning point where you thought of, fixing or turning into an alternative system of education, or it happened gradually?
It happened gradually. In the beginning, I was just trying to do a thing that I enjoyed a lot.
Mm.
For the first year or so, I just couldn't believe that this was my job to just teach. And I really enjoyed it. And for a while, I was just reveling every day that, damn, this is actually my job. Like that felt really good. So initially, it was just trying to get to do something that I absolutely loved because I really like computer science and AI. I liked physics. I was a performer in college. I was a dancer a lot. So teaching brings a bit of those too. So I was feeling like I was putting together things that I had uniquely learned together to build a product at Byju's, and before that while I was teaching. So it was initially starting like that. And I was learning the depth of the problem through these years. So there was one moment where I decided there should be an alternative. I was just trying to be a great educator.
Okay.
And I eventually came to the conclusion that, like trying to actually challenge the traditional K2, that's an ambitious thing to do, right? So that happened after like some 7, 8 years of working in education.
Okay. I actually second with what you said. The older system, eventually they will die. They have to die because, Montessori and all those are probably hundreds of years old, and kids now are 100% different than what we were and what our parents were. And the education system have to have that kind of innovation, and probably Stay Curious is what you've dreamt of to bring in the change in that education.
Yeah, we are talking
Okay. Yeah. So for the parents hearing about Stay Curious for the first time, now how do you explain that, and what is this school and how it works in a very simple way?
Yeah, so Stay Curious is a project based school. What that means is that children will not do projects as a side dish or as a end of term happy thing or once in a science expo. That's the main course through which they will learn, which means at every point they're working in a project which is authentic, which is rigorous. It's tied to the standards like science and math deeply. So that's the first thing that they'll have to know. Children will learn by working on projects. The second thing they can know is that they're working in an 8-member classroom, not a typical 30-member classroom. Whichever board you pick, CBSE, ICSE, IBCSE, it all varies, but between like 25 to like 40 typically. And almost all of them have a person standing in front of rows talking. So a lot of parents are thinking which board, but actually the learning model is same across the boards to a very large extent. So in an 8-member pod, the child will learn with a coach. So it's project based, it's an 8-member pod where they're constantly debating, discussing, building. It's almost like a simulation of a real world workplace that the child will do. The third is that they'll work for 4 hours a day, 3 to 4 hours a day, rather than sit in school for like 8 hours or so. Now, why do we do this? Is that the 8-member pod makes the socialness really deep. We believe that, when we go to a physical classroom, we're doing something very social. But there's something not so social about sitting next to someone among 30 and listening to somebody. Rarely in life do you do that. But debating with each other, building something together, having to peer review, having to present, that's what they're doing socially. And they do that for about 4 hours a day. And we don't have homework till high school deliberately, because research actually says that the homework at below that level is actually not
Necessary.
not helpful and actually slightly harmful because of the side effects that it has of like not giving enough outdoor time, not giving enough family time, and just unnecessary pressure that makes children lose motivation for learning. So it's a project-based school in an 8-member pod where children meet, spend about 3 to 4 hours a day with breaks, and it's remote. Like when we say online school, people will think that the pandemic Zoom school might come to their mind. But when you're forced to do something that, because of a pandemic, what already doesn't work offline works even more worse online. Like the lecture model doesn't work anyway. So this is remote in the sense that children will log in from a home office like this. And it's more closer to working remotely with a set of teammates across the world. And through this, they will hit all their standards rigorously. It's not like this is for some kind of after school, hey, science, maths, and all you have to learn somewhere else. No, not really. This is how they will learn these core areas.
Project-based learning happens across all the learning areas: math, science, English, social. How it works?
Yeah. So one of the best ways to implement project-based learning is to not have this timetable and then say that once in a while you'll do projects. You just convert the school into a linked list of projects, into just like a single course. The school feels like a single course. So children wake up, they have about 1.5 hours of deep work every day, which is not project based, which is more like you're learning something. It could be individual, it could be as a group, you're exploring some question deeply. It could be a math fluency or something. And then the other 2 hours, and this can be in different orders. There's 2 hours that you do of deep project based learning. So that's the project work hours. There's 1.5 hours of deep work with some breaks. And say the first project you do might be something like write a fable. And that's say a English project. And then it's so instead of like imagine it's a textbook. And you have different textbooks in a school: science, maths, English. Instead of that, StayQrious is a single textbook.
Okay.
Except some chapters will be only one subject, like say write a fable. But some other chapter will be like, hey, stock market, build a stock market. And then in there it will be like, hey, two math ideas are there, two financial literacy ideas are there, and two communication ideas are also there, English communication standards. And now next chapter you go to will be like build a bridge. And then next,
Wow.
so that's how you're learning. And this is more effective than like, doing a timetable and then adding some project-based learning on top.
Yeah. That's what most traditional school does. The projects will be at the end of the school where you have to maintain a portfolio, do some project, exhibit it, and that is the traditional setup.
Correct. An end of term project to show what you have learned is very different from a project through which you learn. So this is project-based learning. That is a project to maybe kind of like finish off your work, and these two like have very different learning outcomes. Like this works much more rigorously than that, and also
Especially for the kind of examples that you gave on stock market and financial literacy, probably most of the schools doesn't even introduce financial literacy or cyber security and all those things which are 21st century skills. Everybody has to know about finances, how to manage them, even it is a small thing, probably saving or how you have to deposit your check and how to use those mutual funds and everything. Probably most of them in the traditional setup has no clue about it because of the rigid education system that we are still following.
absolutely. And actually, when you asked me what is my school about, I said it's project based. I said they do it in 8 members. I said they do it for 4 hours, right? It's deeply social and all. But I never explained. But what do they learn in that? And you brought out a beautiful question there. The biggest change we're making is asking the question: okay, you have all this, but what are you going to teach them?
Mm.
There, I feel like you said, for 100 years or so, we found it very hard to update the curriculum.
Yeah.
And even if you say financial literacy, and if parents imagine it, sometimes it's like, okay, you should teach them how to do taxes. And like, it's like a small part of it. Yeah, it's you can do better. And the other challenge is if you want to do something like financial literacy, imagine lecturing at them in a boring way. It's gonna actually make it worse than not even teaching it. For that, or say something like emotional resilience. That's like, okay, children, today we're going to do like, it becomes like moral instruction, which sadly ends up losing value. So the beauty of the kind of authentic projects is that if you have to run like a small cloud kitchen, which is another project, you have to learn a little bit of decimals. You have to learn a little bit of fractions. You have to learn a little bit of what profit is, loss is, and also some emotional resilience in some cases. Sometimes we have an explicit project. So that's to answer your question. The main thing we're trying to do through all of this, why do all of this, is we think the curriculum needs to be updated with the durable skills needed for the future, and some new kinds of knowledge, whether it's AI literacy and all that. And sadly, many even progressive schools many times are tech phobic, or like kind of like going in a direction that I don't think is the best for the children.
Yeah.
So our aim is to do that. Yeah.
You brought up a beautiful term tech phobic, which actually happens everywhere, even in the parent community. If my son is watching YouTube for certain number of hours or using some gadgets, every parent first or a teacher or a school takes it as an agenda and say it is a screen free school. Or do you think is it necessary? I don't agree with that because AI will be the future. Nobody will sit and write essays later in probably in 5, 6 years later. It's all about how to actually teach our kids to give a better prompt. And unless and until you use AI efficiently or not being that tech phobic, probably no one can be efficient in another 10 years. So, what do you have to say about it?
Yeah. AI is definitely one piece of it. But even if we forget AI for a moment, right? I had coding taught to me from second standard in school. How do you learn coding the right way without like actually using a screen? Educational videos are it's called dual coding. When the visuals are clear to you and the audio is coming to you, you can actually learn better. Educational videos are a big part of when I used to make videos like 10 years ago. People used to be like, hey, sitting in a teacher and watching a teacher only is better. But today, almost all of us agree that watching a video sometimes just short is better. A part of the child's adult life is going to be maybe remote working like this, and having that work ethic to set it up and learn is going to be good for them. Digital literacy is going to be important. Even if I'm saying all of this, even ignoring AI, forget the AI revolution, it's huge, but even forgetting that. So my belief is that trying to make things screen free first is like an easy solution to a complex problem. The complex problem is that children, there's so much happening, and teaching them how to deal with it is going to be difficult. So you can virtue signal by saying that, you know what, hey, you know what, it's this bad thing that I've removed. I think it's bad for the children. Imagine that I tell you that sugar is just really like just horrible, or the more I do that to you as an adult, you're going to have a hard relationship with food, right?
Yeah.
I think we should treat technology and information like we treat food today. We want them to build a healthy relationship with it in the future. And I can't do things to you now. In fact, if I have to share with you, it disturbs me. There's some footage I see on Instagram where young children, like 6-year-olds, 5-year-olds, maybe 3, 4, some kindergarten school, there is some demonstration that's being shown where, you know, that some child is using phone all the time, and then its eye is gotten like bleeding. And then they put some, and I'm like, is this real? Is this real? And then they show the phone to all the children. Oh, the children are getting scared, and this is being peddled on social media, and I'm like, this is not good,
Yeah.
right? So I worry about creating a bad relationship with technology for these children.
Storage.
So if you ask me, the answer is that they need to be taught to use it with guardrails, of course, with
Yes.
understanding of online safety, with understanding of content risks that they can get exposed to if they don't have that safety. So it needs to be done thoughtfully.
Yeah.
If I don't have technology anyway, no. If I don't know how to use it, no. Suddenly I can convert that weakness into a strong point by saying I'm screen free. That is a marketing. I've changed my weakness into a strength in one shot by claiming. That's all. Like, I'm not saying this everybody does it, but you know what I mean.
Recently had a debate with the school owner about the screen-free learning thing. And I said everything is going to be on screen in later years, and you're giving that screen-free environment right now and not giving them how to use it kind of instructions. What they are going to learn, how will they be future ready? Probably that's the best answer that you gave, just to treat it as a like like a food and bring that healthy relationship and
Correct.
learn what is safe online and what is not safe.
And including telling them when to not have screens around. I think not all learning, even though we're remote, right? Many of the learning might happen on, like, say, a desk like this where they're like working and showing what's going on. So in StayQrious, many times they're building things. And so it's also the dichotomy that, screen means you're looking like that. And, many times in a school, you're looking at a blackboard. It's kind of a screen. Icons are bouncing off of it. Like I get very physics about this. And yeah, I do wish that we, and parents, the community especially, is willing to take a deeper call on this. And
Yes.
if I can share one last thought on this, because it's so important to me,
Yes.
the mental health impacts that children are facing, right? If you look at it deeper, it's because of not getting outdoor time in an unstructured way that nobody's like supervising them.
Mm.
Deep cost seems to be there. And deep cost seems to be not protecting them from some kinds of content, even online, and no family connection. So I feel like this kind of deeper problem is being easily solved through, okay, I'll put more limits on you on the screen. I think that's not helping, in my opinion. The root cause is not being addressed of like, hey, are they getting enough family connection? Many times the phone is looking more alluring because that's the one source that's giving you some connection, whereas it's not. So the problem is not the screen. The problem is there is nothing more that's not nothing competing with it that's truly more exciting for them. So I would like parents to really, really take the hard look at the deeper cause, and the solution might be harder, like figuring out ways to help them go out and play and have more time to do that, versus solving the superficial problem. Yeah.
Absolutely, absolutely. So, coming back to Stay Curious, now I want to know how a typical day of a child looks like at Stay Curious School.
So we start a bit later than traditional schools because there's evidence that children need to sleep. Surprise, yeah. So it starts at about 9:30 for India time, and uh, officially it starts at 10. But 9:30 is like kind of like children are coming in, they're talking, they're informally saying hi, they want to talk, and it's also to make sure that they're getting enough. So it's kind of like a 15-20 minute opening circle,
Okay.
and then by 10, the day starts, and you have 2 hours, like I said, of project work. You're always on one project that you're working with your 8-member team and one coach, and you're working with them. You might even learn something, and then you take a break. In this between, also, you're taking like tiny breaks, eye breaks, 20-20-20 rule, where every 20 minutes you do that. You look far away for 20 feet, 20 seconds, you look for that's the thing. So they take those breaks. Then once you do that, you take like a half-hour break. And then now you do 1.5 hours of what's called deep work.
Okay.
And deep work is where not everything you can cover through a project. Like there are some foundational fluencies, we call them. It could be math fluencies or English fluencies. The projects will also be covering maths and science and English, but some pieces of math and science and English and all don't really lend themselves very well to a project. So they're working on something, sometimes independently. Maybe they're working on Khan Academy. or sometimes they're working on together solving some puzzle and things like that. So that's 1.5 hours. And then every day, usually for a half hour or so, they do an empathy circle or they do a social circle. They keep switching. Social circle just playing some unstructured games. Empathy circle is just sharing their day, and then the day is done. That's pretty much their day. So it's about 3 to 4 hours, and that's a typical day. But depending on the phase, if the project deadline's appearing, they're preparing for that presentation, and then they're presenting it, celebrating, and then like the next project starts. This is the cycle they're constantly going through.
Okay. So now online school is kind of still new in India. A lot of people are not exposed to it. Now, tell me, what is the biggest challenge that you faced while creating a full fledged online school in India?
See, because we were actually an after school program before this. In 2020, we did programming after school, science. So all of the will it be engaging? Will children learn effectively? Most of it we had 4 years to fix. So the big question we had in our mind, the reason I didn't actually make it a full school was partly because I thought, hey, will there be enough like parents who kind of want this? And in an 8-member ratio, would it be like too, difficult so on? So, but what happened was many of the children started telling that, sir, this is not an after school program. This is just school done better. If you make this a full school, so they called it like like they just come for 2 hours a week or 4 hours. This is 4 hours of better schooling. And I was like, okay, that's so the children were leading me in 2023 to say that, um, this is actually already there as a full school. So, and then what happened was we knew that there is a thriving homeschooling community, which we thought it's a tiny circle through which we can start, even though that's not where we want to end. So the big challenge for me was in just like putting together the curriculum we built for 4 years together, making sure children's energies don't get too dissipated. Hey, is it 4 hours? Is it like figuring out those details? And then putting it out there, finding the price that's right, that way can we pull off an 8-member classroom, which means that the ratios are going to be small, right? Like, so that was challenging. But honestly, when we put out the message, right, it's split, right? The market, there are people who just think this is not possible.
Correct.
And then there are people who actually think this is possible for various reasons. For maybe remote work has worked for them. They're able to see why this is more efficient. Or they've seen their child learn well in some skill-based class. Maybe the child's learning piano or certain other things, and they've seen that the child's actually able to learn so well online.
Yeah.
And they're like, "Hey, but why can't then science or math be learned that way?" Right? They're making that connection. And so we only focus on these parents now. So the biggest challenge has been that we are aware that this is a small group. We know it's growing, but it's small. And that's like both an advantage and a disadvantage. The advantage is that we tend to stay focused on them. The disadvantage is that I do believe that a lot of the fear mongering around screens in general is a problem for me. I think that forget about for us. I think it's bad for children also. I think screens are just a source of photons. We need to be more clear about what it's being used for. That will help, I think. And to your question of like what is most challenging about it, I today personally think I can create more effective learning in this model than if you gave me a physical room, and I can go into the reasons with you if in some longer term conversation.
Okay. Why do you think that online is effective than
Yeah.
offline traditional schooling?
So traditional schools have I've taught in a traditional classroom, right? We all look at the positives of it. And, and many parents might even think, hey, if these guys could do this kind of remote thing physically, damn, that'll be better. But I want to tell them there'll be pros and cons. I'll tell you some cons. A physical classroom has a concept of front bencher, last bencher. In a pod like this, there are just 8 boxes. We're all equal, right? Now,
Yeah.
a physical classroom many times is deeply distracted. Let's say you want to give everybody some time to think and then only answer. I can't so here you have more controls. I can actually ensure that focus space is there. And there's an independent station, which we have a station rotation model. It's an independent station, there's a pair station. So as a coach, I can work with children without the others even hearing. And I can take them aside, work with them, give them that focus space. So traditional classrooms have there's actually a bit more distracting and a bit more um not very suitable for the introverts or the quieter kids. They're not like because of this. And so a lot of times what I find, even education wise, right, even pedagogy wise, if the primary UI is like I have a board and I have to show everybody that, but over here different children can be watching a different video and then quickly come back to my conversation.
Mm.
It organically lends itself to a quick quiz that you'll have to take. Hey, let's all just quickly go do research. Each is on a tab doing research. So of course the way to implement this in a physical classroom is they all have a laptop in the physical classroom, but then that's almost going to be the same thing being done, just that we're doing it in the same room.
Yeah.
Yeah, so a lot of the effective ways of learning that I can create using a tool like a laptop, where I can make them do independent research, collaborate together, take a quick quiz, have take them aside in the privacy without shaming them, help them learn certain things, give them targeted feedback without distracting other children. Have them work in pairs where one pair's conversation doesn't go to the other. So you have a room, 3 rooms where they're talking. I can see all three of them, pairs, 3 pairs talking, but they can't hear each other. Lots of these little pieces add up to create like an environment that's more effective eventually. So yeah. So I don't think it's strictly better to do a physical school, yeah.
Okay. So, whatever advantages we tell the parents about the online setup and everything, project based learning, and ultimately the parents' interest ends up in the CBSE exams, board exams, or ICSE board exams. Now, tell me, how do you teach those core concepts with the project based learning? For example, say a child is taking the grade 10 board exams and she or he has to learn trigonometries and a lot of other concepts. How do you teach those concepts using projects?
Yeah. Commonly, it's believed that projects are great for learning things like collaboration, the things that we haven't been taught in school. But that's only because we weren't taught these concepts like through projects in school. So all of us are biased by how we were taught something,
Mm.
right? Let me give you an algebra project example that's coming up in 6th grade. So you have to play the role of a financial advisor.
Mm.
That's your role. And there are a few questions you have to pick for your family, which is like rent versus buy, Uber versus car, your own, the bunch of uh, problem statements are there for you, and your playwright play, role playing that. As part of that, you'll have to end up using algebra to model, hey, based on your specific family's expenses, everything, hey, which works out better for you. So essentially, but as part of that, once you've established that, the learning can look pretty direct. What I'm trying to say is, as part of the project, you can have a 1 hour workshop of, hey, let's learn single variable algebra. Let's learn how to represent equations. Let's do problems on it. But the big change is you now know exactly why you're learning that. The big question in the child's mind or many children's mind is, why am I learning this? Hey, but now you know, hey, I'm going to have to create that model to improve my advice, which is going to come by in a week. And I'm learning this now. So there's evidence that just to tell this part, right? This is not new though. Like there are very good project-based schools across the world in various parts, which have taken entire high school like AP chemistry, which have taken entire math and they've taught it. And the data is very interesting. Math, science, in these two where they were measuring, these children who do project-based environments, yeah, you might think they'll do better in collaboration, other things, but maybe in the exam part they'll do lower. The weirdest part is the place where they outperform traditional students most is in these standardized tests. They score, in fact, in the other areas, it's like, they have some improvements and all. But in the subject depth that they develop, because they're learning it through an authentic problem, right? And they're thinking deeper about it. So they actually score the standard, the bell curve is a little shifted to the right for the children who do project-based learning, which means the biggest gains they get is on the subject knowledge, which is something that is almost like surprising to people, mainly because I think we haven't learned through projects. But if projects are not like this magic sauce because of which it happens, it's just because all of education is if you think deeply about something, you learn it better. That's the idea. Now, whatever way you make them to learn it deeply, projects happen to be a good way. I just want to say this because parents don't take away, oh, projects must be magical. Not really. A good question, a good curiosity inducing question can do the job. So in our deep work, we do more curiosity induced questions also.
Yeah, what you said is once they know why they are learning it, they'll better learn it for sure. Yeah.
Correct, correct. So this dichotomy doesn't exist that, you have to learn the right way, but then what will you do for exams? Truth is, if you learn the right way, most of us good students, I got some 94, 95% in both board exams. 15% of the time I would have spent thinking about the exams.
Yeah.
All the good students have already been doing this. So we're like not even coming up with something new here. Yeah.
What I realized lately is on a traditional setup, we're not actually judging them on giving them scores on what they are learning. It's all about what they are able to memorize. Probably they know a concept, they don't remember how to put it in a sentence or a paragraph, and we are just giving them scores according to how much they can memorize rather than what they've learned. Probably on a project based learning, it's an ongoing project. They have time to understand, learn, put it to a test, and then all those
Yeah.
follows.
Yeah. Yeah. You're absolutely right. And I think memory is not bad. It's just that only focusing on it and like focusing on so much breadth can be demotivating for children and actually stop them from learning the deeper parts. They might believe this is what you want me to do. Fine, I'll do. You
Yeah.
know, just to give you like a data point that might be interesting for you, 70 odd percent of kids, 75% almost by 9, 10 years old say they're highly engaged in learning across the world. This is. By 11th standard, that number is about 30%. Right? And then what we do is we look at the children who do well anyway, maybe people like me, and then we use that as proof that the system must work. No, this is a global way of doing what a bad teacher does in a class. Saying if the first bencher could understand, why could you not understand? That is not proof for anything, right? I think it's a very low bar, and as an educator, I feel bad that we have accepted that bar.
Yes.
All the things that you're telling actually ends up shaving away. It's called death by 1,000 cuts, and some 30% of us still remain. God knows why. And then of that, some 5-10% do really well, and then they are shown as proof that the system must be working.
Yeah.
Which is just horrible, I think. Yeah.
Yeah. Okay, so I thoroughly understood how based learning happens and how the core concepts are taught. Now, focusing on the main part of it, how friendships happen in online setup. Children needs that kind of connection. So, is there any way that they meet physically, or how do they build that friendship?
Yeah, yeah. So the first thing I believe is that, schools are where friendships are to be built. And it can happen in an online school too, as we've learned that, like, it's a remote school. But children, we do have an offsite every 6 months. So children, oh yeah, so the model is that you work better remote. Again, if you forget online school and if you think like a remote working environment for kids, which is very active, you'll suddenly like get ideas. So remote work works better if you meet in person. We know this for adults. Once you meet in person, you work better remotely. So they meet every 6 months. So that's something that's helping them. Now, what's unique here is I think children now can have two sources of friendships. So one is their StayQrious friends, where they meet once every 6 months across the country, in fact, the world. We have children from Middle East and lots of other places too. So here you're now meeting this diverse group of people through whom you're learning things that you may not learn otherwise. And then I recommend them that they do something really physical. It could be a theater group, it could be basketball, or something, preferably a team sport in the evenings or a club activity through which they're meeting in person people. So now they're getting this much more richer experience of like, having deep friendships here and over here. We've always believed that it should happen in one place. Not really. And the third could be their apartment friends that some of them who live in townships have. And now this has become one more source. It's not replacing anything. It's actually just aiding in what they're forming. And like I told you, because of these offsites, I've seen children traveling to different cities, and sometimes I'm doing a video call with one of the children I'm mentoring. Another child walks in, "Hi, sir, surprise! I mean, what are you guys doing?" "Oh, we just traveled to this across 2 cities, and now we're meeting." I've been mind blown by the depth that's been created by such a constant working together kind of friendship. You're like, yeah,
That's awesome. So I've been an educator myself for many years. So I have noted certain kids are kind of shy or introverted. They need that personal touch or attention. So how will this happen in an online setup?
when you say attention, is it for their content for them to learn better, or for them to open up and express themselves better?
Open up and express. Kind of emotional touch should be there. As a teacher, I know this child is kind of shy or needs some time to open up. And I give that warmth and touch. And how does this happen on an online set?
Yeah. So I think this most people today get therapy online, right?
Yeah.
I'm just trying to point that out. Like most adults seem to be getting therapy online. Almost every friend of ours, including myself. So why I say this is, um, sometimes we look at a 40-member classroom physically sitting together, and then there is no time. I've been in that zone, right? Parents sometimes ask me, "What do you think about my son, 11th standard?" No, I'll tell, actually, honestly, the only thing I know about your son is that he sits there and doesn't trouble me too much and nods once in a while and answers once every few times. If I claim to know anything more about him, that's just not true. And so I think what happens between the humans is more important than like, where it's happening. So the way we do this is there is a one-on-one that every child has as part of their schedule. It happens bi-weekly to monthly, where they are having this conversation with their coach one-on-one. Then there is the 8-member working together time. Right? And between these, you now have children who are now getting, just by being an 8-member room, it's more a table than a class. And the activities are designed in such a way that you have to constantly express. So we have a joke that all the StayQrious children now, their neighbors get to know about our school more than anybody else, because the children are just like needing to talk all the time. The dynamic is quite a bit like work. Plus these one-on-ones, especially I think that schools are very unfriendly to introverts. I'm an introvert. And I just don't like the idea of having to raise my hand in a 35-member classroom. And of course I can build that muscle, and I should. But that doesn't have to become a blocker to my learning. We treat that as this, and that promotes a lot of first bencher behavior. Such people go to offices and do the same thing but trying to impress their boss because what 18 years of experience, what else do I do? Kind of a thing. So to answer your question, I think shy and introverted are different, right? So introverts, we try to make a more friendly environment for them. Hey, if you want to send your answer through a chat, so be it. It's okay. That's okay. If you're shy though, the way to do that is exposure therapy, which is what we do. Hey, initially in just a 2 member with your friend, are you able to talk? Then to your cohort of 4 people, are you able to tell? Hey, then to an 8 member audience, are you able to make a small presentation? Then to a larger group. So by giving you that safety to slowly start and go, you can actually like improve the shyness part, which I think is like really important. So it's all about the activities, not whether it's online or offline. All of what I told we can do offline also, just that the model is harder to implement. Yeah.
Yeah, absolutely. I mean, that makes a lot of sense. So now tell me, all your coaches or teachers, do they undergo any training for this online setup, and how that part of training teachers to be more efficient? How does that work?
Correct. So a lot of what we discuss will become clearer if, like, we have to forget that the biggest or the most difficult part of what we do or the different part of what we do is online. It's not. It's to transition people from being in a traditional system where they either give lectures as teachers or receive lectures as children. They're mostly expected to be passive. They are so to transition to a project-based system where if you're a child, you have to take more agency. I'm calling out meta problem. Meta problem is not that we are remote or at all. That's the least challenging of this or the least different that we are.
No.
The difficult part is that you have to transition from a passive lecture-based system to an active project-based system. And both children and teachers have a very different role to play in this. Right. And then once you get that right, doing it remotely or in a classroom will be like easier. So
So,
that should help. Now I'll answer the question that you had. So we try to hire teachers who have worked with small groups of children. It could be online, it could be in person. We actually, for example, we don't care about that so much. As long as you worked with children in small groups, you've
mm,
taught them like through project-based learning, either informally or formally, and
mm,
you've helped them coach them rather than win a stage on the stage teacher for them. Right?
mm.
These could be people who've done TFI with a government school for 2 years.
Okay.
I've had people who have taken like from schools that are really project-based. There are a few here and there, right? From there. There are people who have done after-school project-based learning environments, which are like global, like synthesis school or stuff like that. They've come in. So the kind of people who come in are diverse. But have they taught online is actually the least interesting thing for me. Have they done project-based work? Have they worked with small cohorts? Do they know how to coach rather than be more traditional, which is like we can talk about what those differences are. But a picture comes to your mind. Somebody who's trauma uninformed, who's shaming children, like, like, hey, they believe that trauma is maybe good, like whatever. Like, hey, if you don't inflict some trauma, life is going to give them difficulty. If I don't become difficulty, then how will they learn? These kind of intuitive ideas that are wrong and all they'll have. So we try to avoid them as much as possible.
Yeah.
Uh,
So you have this extinct of choosing people who are kind and empathetic and see through the.
Primary reason why I started my own thing, I realized that every school I was working with, I had like huge support from government and school leadership. But some 80% of the teachers will be like, and some 20% will love it. And 10% will be capable also. I thought that 10% I can build a school with them rather than let's cut all those 10% educators who are trying to fight against the system and build a system where they're welcome rather than, um,
And don't you think, Anand, education is uh, all the other sectors are, in the verge of innovation or trying to reform themselves, but still education is where we are stuck and we are rigid. And people, if we think something out of the box, something project based, some progressive thoughts, but still, most of the parents as well as the community of educators, they are the ones who are little stubborn on that.
good question. I have noticed that nothing bothers, like this whole thing being factory model, bothers children a lot, right? Because they have to spend 8 hours there.
Yeah. Yeah.
But the second biggest group, or are almost equal rank people who it bothers the most, are just the good teachers. Now, the educators who are actually like really good at their job, it bothers them a lot. And the challenge for this might be that the incentives financially are not aligned, etc. So it might be the field might be inviting many people for whom it's not their first choice or second choice or third choice, which is problematic. That might be the problem. I think that the good, serious, accomplished, and like doing well educators are finding their ways in it, especially in a country like India where we culturally value it a lot. Parents wise, right? I would say they fall under like two categories. The parents who are in the workplace today, the successful, they're professionals, entrepreneurs, creatives, they are looking at it, they're looking at K-12 and saying, hey, this is not what I was going to help my child. They themselves won't hire the child who comes out of this system. They're not excited to do that. So they are looking for innovation, they are looking for change. And then I think there are other parents for whom, and we shouldn't blame them, this is speaking from a place of privilege, right? They are yet to understand all of this. So they are like, hey, I want at least a bare line minimum safety for my child. So I think it's really complex. And so I think there are so many Indias. And I think when we speak of one India, it's easy to like dismiss the other India. So I'm very aware that I'm incapable of building for all. I'm building for the small group that I told in the beginning. Hey, you're professionals, you're creatives. You understand the problem and you can't wait for the system to change to you. So you're like, yeah, yeah. So, but you're, because of these reasons of like not everybody's first choice, a lot of regulations are getting in the way also, right? Education is heavily regulated because of these reasons. Because I'll tell you why most principals I spoke to back when I was in Khan Academy would be like, this is exactly what I wish I can do. But then I have to train my teachers to do that. And that is a big blocker. Or, hey, my school doesn't possess the expertise to implement project based learning or mastery based learning. So the will is there, but the skill is not there, or regulations are going to make it harder. And you're right, some 10% parents who are very vocal will make a problem. And schools some many times don't have the will to like say, you know what, that 10% should leave.
Mm.
I think sometimes you should do that. I think so. Yeah.
Yeah, probably this what I'm going to say now will kind of have a lot of debate on that. Most of the principals or school authorities or the people top level managements are 50 years and above, and probably technology itself is a bit challenging for them, even to uh, introduce that to their schools, or that's why the very traditional, very rigid model are still existing in lots and lots and lots of schools, especially in tier 2 and tier 3 schools. Students are not exposed to many things. Probably when you talk about cities like Bangalore, Delhi, Mumbai, uh, we do have opportunities for our kids to, either take them outside or show them this is what I, but when it comes to tier 2 and tier 3 children, probably they're missing out on a lot of things. Stay Curious kind of platform will definitely open doors for many students like that.
Yeah, some of the progressive parents who are from these kind of, not the metros, do join us. And for their child, the child gets a sense of belonging to a tribe that's more global without having to be straitjacketed by your physical location. Yeah, absolutely. Yeah.
So when we're talking about parents, tell me, I have a small story to probably share. During this COVID, I have a son who is 11 years old, and when he was in his pre-KG and grade 1, he had this proper pandemic and online classes. And I had to work. I was in some kind of meeting, say, and he used to run to me and, Mama, I want this. Mama, where's my pencil? Mama, ma'am is calling you, all those things. So I used to find it really, really irritating. And because the parents' role during online sessions are too much. I think the expectations of a mom or a dad or somebody to sit next to a child is kind of built in those 2 years of pandemic. So now tell me how much the parents' involvement is required in state.
My eyes filled with panic when you said parents sitting next to. That's actually our nightmare. The joke that I have is that there are a lot of IB schools, and then there are people who are in their maybe middle age who are doing really well suddenly in many skills. Why is that? Because they're doing all their children's projects. So that's like my problem with these kind of projects being outsourced to home. So our ideal involvement is that parents are very supportive of the child's kind of emotional needs. They're like talking to their child about in a fun dinner table conversation. But beyond that, we don't want any work from them. And we only work with children above 7.5. So I probably, if the child's like 4 and I'm forced to do online, I might need some parent support, probably. But I don't do that. So we actually don't expect anything from the parents. In fact, we strongly discourage the parents from uh, even listening in. Because children share really personal things in Stay Curious. It gets really personal, and I don't want their privacy to be. And many times it's about the parents.
Yeah.
They need a space to talk about that. Like so we don't want any involvement. We want to build in children a sense of agency, and we'll handle. I would rather take a messy, unfinished project from a child and work with them, than get the parents to be involved. Yeah.
Probably there are two kinds of parents. One extremely busy, not available for the online classes, or one too much free and all the time around the kid and peeping inside the camera, classrooms and see what
Yeah.
has happened.
I think many of our kids prevent that. So all the parents report that the kids tell, "Ma, no, and then they have their space, because I think they very quickly children realize this is their safe space, right? They want to have a space where they can be themselves. Yeah.
Yeah, there's a safe space for them and they want to be themselves.
Correct. And it's important both for learning and for nourishing their social development. Like to have a space where every day empathy, every multiple times a week they're talking about things that bothered them. And in an 8-year-old, 9-year-old's life, what bothered them might be what happened at home also. So if that's happening multiple times a week, we can't have the parent coming in, hey, what are you talking? It can't happen. And but the children are really benefiting from talking to a set of peers, and what's happening. Other children are learning, okay, various things, right? It's like, it could happen in my house, or so many good social developments are happening there. So yeah, you're right. Parents, I'm more worried of them getting over involved.
Some misconceptions parents have about online schooling that you want to address here.
I think one would be that maybe the quick picture that comes to parents' minds when they think of a school that's running remotely is the pandemic Zoom school. And the pandemic Zoom school is a traditional model that doesn't kind of work very well ported online. And what already doesn't work, you could just see that it doesn't work because it is happening in your house. So I would ask parents to look less offline, online, screen free, screen zone. It's like, even just like in their personal life, is it screen or not? They shouldn't ask the child. Hey, maybe the child's like doing a great video call with grandparents. That's also happening on screen. But what happens in it matters. So the biggest misconception that I would say is that the pedagogy matters a lot. A project-based 8-member pod is a more interesting variable than is it online or offline. But I think many parents have been taught, maybe by influencers online, that screens are inherently bad or something like that. I think the biggest misconception, and it's outside of online schooling, forget the online schooling part, thinking that screens are inherently bad can actually have negative impacts that, come there. And sometimes parents believe that, hey, just looking at a screen might cause eye problems and things like that. I think they should talk to ophthalmologists. This is not true. Near work without going out at all, even if they did that on a book, would have a lot of problems. So I think the big thing I would say is that if they are able to take time to really research, that'll be,
Yeah.
yeah, yeah, that's might be the biggest one I would say. Like I would say, you can do the traditional model offline and a project-based deep model online. You can do traditional model online and traditional model, like, a project-based model offline. So you should look at the model, learning model, as importantly or much more importantly than in the model, in the way in which it's being delivered to you, is what I would say. Yeah.
Okay. Okay. So my last question: where do you see Stay Curious in next 5 years? What is the larger vision that you have towards education and innovation? Where do you see Stay
Yeah.
Curious?
Yeah. Like I said, it's been many years that I've been able to bring it here. Like last 10 years, about 2013, 14, I used to joke that, hey, maybe because of the videos we made. Back then, it was not, we weren't replacing school, we were on top of school. I was hoping that many children will get into great colleges and have great careers in physics or in engineering or whatever, because that's the kind of content we made. And then they'll tell us. In 2024, when I went to my college to give a TEDx talk, there were 50 odd children who were there, who had made it to my college, and they'd all learned through my videos. And it was just a beautiful moment. And what it had taught as a early 20s person in 2014 had taken 10 years for it to happen. So if you ask me, my mission over here for the next 10 years, 2024 to the next 10 years, is that um, enough children should have a viable solution to this problem that education is outdated. And it's like this hotels to Airbnb. And if some people still prefer that kind of a beautiful lobby and what all that hotels provide, but if you truly believe that education happens through good humans and the educators are the real heart of it, just like say the analogy to Airbnb is the host and that closed experience is what is speaking to you. I think that in the next 5 to 10 years, if this can be a viable alternative, right, and neo schools like ours, and it doesn't have to be just us, so many more come up. Some even come up physically like micro schools, and then we all start normalizing children learning what's relevant, children learning actively, and children learning in a psychologically safe, trauma-informed environment. I think I'll consider that a win. And hopefully Stay Curious will be a part of that movement, and hopefully even lead it somewhere in the front. That's what I'm hoping in the next 5 to 10 years. Yeah.
All the very best. And thank you so much for being here and giving us the entire spectrum of online schooling, project based learning, and everything. So it was really, really informative. Thank you so much for being here today, Anand.
Thank you, Akshita. And thanks so much for the thoughtful questions. I really, for a long good part, I was just like thinking about the answers deeply in the moment because of the questions. And thanks so much for framing them that way. Yeah.